Hey, and welcome back. We're the Lorcana Twins, and it's been a while, but we finally have a new card revealed in Disney Lorcana.
Yes, Genie has arrived, and he has really answered the wish that many of us may have had, which is we wanted a new card reveal.
Absolutely. It's been almost a month since the last one, and some of those reveals weren't even the full card, but today we got a full card revealed in Genie, a super rare, and then we have two other cards that were previously spoiled but not fully, and now the full card details have been released, so we're excited to get into that today.
Yeah, I have to say, seeing Genie today, it really rekindled my excitement for this game. It's just been kind of a drought, no information recently, and it's just been great to see that, there's still some very exciting cards that we're just waiting to discover.
Yeah, I think the Genie card is one of the coolest we've seen yet, and so we are going to get right into that. And here he is. It is a 6-cost, non-inkable emerald card with 3 strength, 4 willpower, and 2 lore, and a really cool ability called Disappear, which says that when you play this character, you may return chosen character to their player's hand.
Yes, and he also has the evasive keyword.
Absolutely.
So he's going to be hard for your opponent to deal with if they don't have evasive characters or like removal spells and stuff like that. So he just looks like he brings a lot of cool things to the game.
Yeah, evasive is a pretty pesky keyword if you don't have the right tools, and it's good to see it in a different color. I know Ruby is pretty evasive heavy so far from what we've seen. And I know Sapphire has some ways to deal with it in Robin Hood, and Simba has it in Steel. The ability to attack it. But yeah, it's nice to see it in Emerald here.
Yeah, and before the Genie was revealed, the only character so far that we've seen that returns a character to the hand is Cruella. Mm-hmm. But as many people know, that only happens when your Cruella gets challenged and banished.
Right, so
your opponent has more control over when that happens. But with Genie, it's just basically you get to decide by paying 6 and playing this from your hand when you want to send something back to its owner's hand. So
right,
there's a lot of different things you could do with this card, and that's what's really exciting about it. And it just seems like a great tempo card, especially if you're going first and you've curved out nicely, you've played something on 5, and then maybe they play a 5-cost card on turn 5, and then if you bounce it right back, now you've got a 5-cost and a 6-cost, and they probably have much lower costed things, and you could just run away with the game like that.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty scary card in that regard, and yeah, there's a lot of flexibility in the use of this. Like, you could use it on your own stuff too if you found a reason to do so. Probably would be the least common way to use it, but you never know. We'll see, especially if you have a strong control of the board already and you just get something back to your hand, and especially if it has like an on-play effect, might give you even extra value that way.
Yeah, and I really like the art on this card, how kind of Genie's blue, it's not really a tail, but the bottom part of Genie is kind of swirling into the emerald ink, which is swirling around the whole card, and it looks like he's having fun playing with one of the guards there that give Aladdin some trouble in the film. So
yeah, he's just kind of fooling around with him, and yeah, it's cool because it is an emerald card, but they are sticking with the traditional Genie colors, at least for him. And then you can see with all these abilities and the decent stat line with evasive and 2 lore, really does merit that super rare rarity that we can see in the bottom there.
Yeah, and I know we've both been really excited about the emerald ink and some of the cards revealed so far. And I think the fact that, they really haven't revealed too many emerald cards is actually kind of exciting because I already love what I've seen, and so it just can only get better from here.
Yeah, almost every card seems to have like a unique effect that would really make the opponent think about how to deal with it, or give you, different options to kind of annoy your opponent and try to pull ahead with some different type of advantage. But
yeah, I'd say emerald is probably the color I'm the most excited for at this point. But it'll just, we'll have to see it when all the cards are revealed. But so far, I just love the flexibility and some of the tricky keywords and abilities that they have. I think it's going to be really frustrating for your opponent if you can play these cards well.
Yeah, and I think with so many emerald cards still yet to be revealed, I think the potential is there for even more. And I know, like, the Cusco, very cool character from Emperor's New Groove.
Really excited to see his effect.
We know he's in there. We still haven't seen him yet. So yeah, I'm very curious what he will add to the first chapter. But now we're going to take a look at just 5 examples of cards that you might return to your own hand with Genie's Disappear effect. So starting off with this, now just a quick note, this would be a very late game play, but if you were able to get up to that 9 ink, then you could play Maleficent Monstrous Dragon and use this to banish one of your opponent's characters or one of your own, but I think you would go with the opponent's. And then with Genie, you'd be able to play him, and then you could bounce Maleficent back. Now you'd probably wait, on that following turn, maybe you've attacked or challenged something with Maleficent first, or quested with her to collect that 2 lore. Then you could bounce her back to your hand. Maybe, kind of a pseudo way to heal off any damage she took in a challenge, and have her ready to go for another banish on the following turn.
That's what I think is strong. Something you need to consider when you think about bouncing your own character back is you can still, get some value out of your character by questing or challenging. So you might trade into something with Maleficent, and maybe she's down to 1 health, 1 willpower left, but now you can bounce her back and then have another nice removal action with her Dragonfire ability on the following turn, and then she's at 7/5 again in terms of the stat line. Or you can quest for 2 and then bounce her back, so just make sure that you sequence it appropriately, and then to get the maximum value for whatever situation you find yourself in.
Yeah, and I'm sure it feels bad to have Maleficent played on you once, but knowing that that's going back to their hand and going to get played on you again, that would feel really bad for the opponent and really good for the Genie player. So just a cool combo.
And on that note, it seems like a good reason to bounce a card back to your hand would be if it has an on-play effect. So that would be something you could benefit from. And conversely to that, you probably don't want to be bouncing back one of your opponent's characters that has an on-play effect, unless the effect isn't really going to be too negatively impactful.
Right, you wouldn't want to use Genie to bounce back an opponent's Maleficent.
Right, because then they could just turn around and banish the Genie on the following turn if they had, the ink to play it, which they obviously did if they had it on the field.
I suppose only, if they were like 2 lore away from the win and you had no other way to remove it, I guess then you'd kind of be forced to. But yeah, not something you'd typically want to do. So now we're going to look at another one. We have the other Maleficent, or one of the other ones. This one, has Cast My Spell. Again, an on-play effect that when you play this character, you may draw a card. So, maybe you play it 1 turn, and then the follow-up turn, you quest with it, or you use her to sing a song, or do a challenge, whatever, and then you play Genie and get it back to your hand, so that when you play it the next time, it's another card draw for you.
Yeah, and her stat line isn't that great. So, normally if you quest with this, or if you use it in a combat challenge, it's probably going to die in a combat challenge. But if you quested with this or sang a song with it, then it's probably sitting there very vulnerable and likely to go down on the opponent's next turn. But with Genie, this is a great way to just kind of recycle your Maleficent and get another card out of her. So I think it's really great kind of how you can get around what your opponent might want to do just by bouncing your own things back to your hand, and then getting an extra card here.
Absolutely. And now we have Lady Tremaine.
So this is another example of an on-play effect that benefits you. So you've already played Lady Tremaine, you got an action card back from your discard to your hand, and now you play Genie maybe on the following turn, and you return your Tremaine after you quest with her or something like that, and then on the following turn you can get another action back again. So you just keep recurring value for yourself to kind of generate more value than your opponent is.
Yep. And then we have Beast. So again, another on-play effect. So on turn 5, perhaps, you play the Beast and destroy an item card that your opponent has with his destruction ability. And then, but maybe they have more than 1 item down. Maybe they have 2 or 3. They're rocking a Marie Spell item-heavy deck. And so you want to get your Beast back after you've maybe used him to challenge or quest on that following turn. And then you play Genie, get it back to your hand, and you're able to destroy another item the following turn when you play Beast again. So just another example there. And next we have Hades, who, again, kind of like Lady Tremaine, only when you play Hades, he returns a character card from your discard pile to your hand. So again, it's just a lot of recursion you can be doing with the Genie and Hades loop, and just trying to get more card advantage and outvaluing your opponent in kind of a long, grindier style, if you are, not so behind on board that you don't have the time to be able to do that while your opponent sits and quests. Just one other thing to point out with cards like Hades, though, and Lady Tremaine, again, they don't have the Inkwell symbol on them, so they're not able to be inked, and neither does Genie. So you just want to be careful you don't load your deck with too many cards like that, so that you might find yourself in a situation where you can't play the cards in your hand and you can't ink them, so then you're kind of stuck. But definitely powerful cards, and so it'll be nice to find the ideal balance and number of them to include in the decks.
And then we didn't put up a visual for this, but one other interesting combination you could use Genie for is, let's say you're playing a very aggressive challenger deck with the keyword challenger. And, you know, most of the time the challenger characters are much better on offense, and then on defense they sit there very vulnerable with less strength than they do when they're attacking. So if you're, let's say you're running a steel emerald deck and you're playing Genie, and maybe you're playing Captain Hook, the 1 cost, and Prince Eric, the 2 cost, you know, you could attack aggressively with them on your turn, and then if you have the ink for it, you could then drop Genie and bounce some of those, you know, cheaper challengers back to your hand, so that you can play them again when your opponent can't attack into them, and then they can sit there ready to go to do some more, you know, combat trading for you. So that's another potential use for him. And I really think Genie's evasive is going to be big here, because, you know, he's only cost 6 for the 2 lore with evasive. That seems pretty good when you factor in also his bouncing mechanic, and his stats are, you know, pretty decent. So there are several evasive characters like Tigger, Robin Hood, and, you know, Big Little, or the Taylor Mickey card that could take this out in combat without going down. But, you know, those cards are pretty top end, and, you know, Genie is gonna get additional value by, like, he could just return Tigger if Tigger's already down, and then by the time Tigger can attack, you know, you've really slowed your opponent probably more than they would like. So I think he's just gonna see a lot of play, probably based on the cards that we've seen so far.
Yeah, I think even just the tempo play alone, getting to probably, you know, remove one of your opponent's characters back to hand, especially if they spent, you know, all 5 of their ink on the previous turn playing 1 unit, and you just pop that back to their hand. Yeah, you're gonna be pulling ahead with tempo. And I know a lot of Emerald cards we've seen, like Cruella de Vil and Cheshire Cat, they're not really cards you want to challenge into anyway. And then you've got one like this, which maybe with its evasive, they just can't even challenge. So all of a sudden they've got a lot of lore generators that the opponent just doesn't know what to do with or can't keep up with. And I think it'll be a lot of fun. I was very excited to see this card, and it looks very strong.
Yeah, and this card seems like it would kind of punish people that are playing very expensive cards like the Brave Little Taylor Mickey. You know, if they spend 8 on that and then you bounce it for 6, you can still do something else with your remaining ink, and maybe by the time
it delays the questing of that Mickey by another turn at least.
Yeah, and then maybe they play that, and maybe you're playing Emerald and you've got a way to give that Mickey Reckless on the next turn, so that you're just really stopping them from doing what they want to do. And I think that's what's going to be super fun about Emerald.
Yeah,
and this card also, the last thing to say about this is that, you know, so far there's not a lot of ways to deal with cards that are just played down, like a character that's not exerted, you know, unless you have a removal spell, and if your opponent is close to that 20 lore, and you're like, oh, I guess the game's just over. But this is just another example of a card that you can actually stop characters that are unexerted just on play, and so it gives you more opportunity to stay in the game and to kind of swing a game back in your favor.
And what's nice is that, kind of like Maleficent Monstrous Dragon, you're not just using a removal spell and then not developing the board at the same time. This allows you to do both at once, which is, you know, very valuable, especially to create extra pressure on the opponent and take away some of theirs. So amazing card. Yeah, and now along with Genie, we have another member from his film that we are going to be talking about, because this card today was just fully revealed, and that is Iago, Loudmouth Parrot. So before, we had seen this card, but we weren't able to get, you know, a full look at its ability, and it says, you got a problem? Exert. Chosen character gains Reckless during their next turn, which means they can't quest and must challenge if able.
I think this card is going to be very annoying to deal with because he does have a nice 4 in the willpower, so it's going to take a decent amount of strength to clear Iago off the board, and the ability to just kind of pick and choose your opponent's characters that you don't want to quest, whether, you know, it could be a character like Belle, where when she quests it reduces the item cost. So you know she probably wants to quest, but now you can make her challenge instead, and now they can't get that benefit. Moana, same thing. You know, she wants to quest so that you can ready your other princess characters. And in this case, you can make Moana challenge, and we all know her 1 strength isn't going to be very effective in combat. So things like that. And like Cheshire Cat is another example. he has 0 strength, so he really only wants to quest. So you can counter that with Iago here, and Iago actually, and Cheshire Cat won't be able to do any damage to Iago if in a combat. So I think Iago has really great potential, and even just imagine they have a brave little Tailor Mickey, and you exert this card that costs 3, and then you make their 8 cost card be unable to go for that 4 lore that it wants.
Yep. I mean, in that case, you'd lose the Iago, but I think it'd be, a good trade, especially if that's what you needed in the moment. And yeah, I think just with this card, you could just leave him sit up, kind of like a control card. And any time that they have a quest that they really want to happen, like, yeah, especially the Moana example, you could just say, nope, you're not questing this time. And whether you're able to take out Iago or not, at least I'm delaying your game plan and making you think about things differently.
And the other cool thing about making someone do a challenge is then they will be exerted on the following turn, so it allows you to then trade into that character. Maybe it's a character they were just planning to leave it sit, they didn't want you to touch it, so they weren't exerting it, and they were just waiting for the right time to quest with it or use it in some other fashion. But now you can kind of target it down and make it exert, and then it opens up the vulnerability of you can then attack into their character next turn. Of course, there's ways the opponent can play around this. They can sing a song with their character. If they have an exert effect, they can exert instead of challenging. So there's things like that. But if you set up the board right and this effect, it seems like it's something that could really mess with your opponent too.
Yeah, I really do think just the fact that it prevents you from questing and getting that lore, which ultimately is how you win the game, collecting enough lore. I think that is, a very big piece, the main piece, with this reckless keyword. And I mean, I think it's just like a cherry on top if you can force them to attack into something that's not ideal. Like, for example, the Beast is Mine card. If you could make someone challenge your Cheshire Cat and banish it so that then you could banish any of their cards, then in that case, or whichever banished him, like that would be, ideal. Now with Iago, it's not going to present that possibility really, because they could just take out the Iago instead, because he will be exerted when he uses this ability, so they could always just opt to challenge him, and there's no real downside to them banishing Iago. But other cards that grant reckless, we can see there's big potential there to set up some interesting combos with things like Cruella or Cheshire. But I think, as a control piece and delaying them from winning the game by collecting lore, he's looking very nice, and that stat line for 3 cost is pretty good.
Yes, and he is a rare card based on his rarity symbol, and
so I think that's indicative that they do feel this is a solid ability, and I agree.
And we can see Jafar's sleeve here on the card art, and I'm really hoping that there is a Emerald Jafar that has some really tricky effect that would just fit the Emerald theme very well. And, I'd love to see that as like one of the Emerald Legendary cards, because I think Jafar is just a really cool villain. And, Iago is definitely his sidekick, and he makes sense to me to be an Emerald when I think of Jafar. So I'm hoping they did that.
And now lastly, we got another full reveal. Timon, Grub Rustler, who is a 1 cost, inkable, 1 strength, 2 willpower character.
So this character, we pretty much were able to read the full effect before based on what had been revealed. So it's when you play him, you can remove 1 damage from a chosen character, and his stats and cost are the same as Hey, the boat snack.
It's kind of what we were predicting.
His lore
with that.
his lore is also 1, just like Hey. Now I personally prefer Hey-Hey's effect, because when Hey quests, he gets to give 1 strength to another character. So if you had Timon and Hey, Timon becomes a 2/2 when he's challenging on that turn after Hey quests, and so then he can really swing up and take out something that might have costed 2 or something like that. Whereas healing 1, I don't think that's going to be too impactful, especially like if you played this on turn 1 just because it curves out nice. You're not really getting any benefit from the heal.
There'd be nothing to heal, yeah.
I think maybe in a Stitch deck where you just kind of want to exert Timon when you play him, get a heal and draw a card off of the 6 cost shifting Stitch.
It's possible that
might be okay.
Some early trades could happen where an opponent might look at what's on board and think, oh, well, I can do this challenge, and my thing won't get banished, and maybe something you still have on board could challenge me back, but you'll also lose yours. Like maybe you have a 2/3 on board, but it's taken a damage, so they think they're 2 damage. Unit would be able to take that out, and now all of a sudden you surprise them with a Timon, and now your 2/3 is able to banish theirs and still survive the fight. So I think in some like niche cases it might work out, but yeah, I feel
like 1 health though is probably just not going to be relevant enough to include this.
More likely, and it depends like how your opponent plays, because some people will probably only challenge if they can banish something outright, and then you won't have anything left to heal. So again, I do agree. I think Hey looks probably like a more impactful 1-drop, but I love the art on this Timon card, and I do think it's a neat ability that, and you never know, maybe in the future there will be cards that say, oh, whenever a character is healed, draw a card or something, and then this would help play along with something like that. But we haven't seen anything like that yet, but there's potential. So
yeah, for now I think he's probably on the weaker side, but we'll just have to see if there's other healing synergies or any potentially like a Lion King synergy.
And he does still counteract the Maleficent biding her time, the 1-cost 1/1 Maleficent that quests for 2 lore. So at least, if nothing else, I mean, his stats are somewhat on par with some other ones, but it is the weakest stat line besides the 1/1 that we have seen for 1. So yeah, I think,
and at least you can ink him, if you want to play Timon, because I agree the art on this one is very fun. It's just so bright, and looks like a tasty morsel he's holding up there if you like bugs. I personally don't, but he looks like he likes them. So yes. Now with that, we did get the Genie today. That was the main reveal, and he's all about wishes, and usually you get 3 wishes when you rub that magic lamp. So we'd like to know if you could wish for 3 things in Lorcana. Please let us know in the comments what those 3 things are, and it doesn't have to be like a specific card or a character. That's great, but it could also be something like, personally I would wish that everyone on the launch day could get as much product as they wanted to get. And I know that's definitely not going to happen, but if I had 3 wishes for Lorcana, that would probably be at the top of my list. So
yeah, that's a good one. And I guess for me, I hope Lorcana as a TCG is able to thrive for many years to come. I know there's a lot of people out there, ourselves included, that have been super excited for this game for quite some time, and to see it have success and be a game that we can all play and enjoy for years to come would be awesome. And yeah, hopefully it brings in not only TCG veterans that are excited to try a new game, but people that are new to TCGs in general, and just to build a warm and welcoming community. I think that would be absolutely amazing, and that's one of my wishes for Lorcana. But we want to know a few of yours, and so let us know in the comments. But until next time, thank you so much for watching.
Yes, thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.